Wow. Holy cow, guys. It's been a whole week since the last one we did?
Oh, dear. Yeah, it's been an entire week.
Usually when we publish once a week, that would be the cadence of only speaking once a week in this platform. But, you know.
I think it was earlier than a week, though. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's not relevant to the format. Thank you. Thank you for joining us and Free Range American, everyone.
Yeah. What are you guys?
We're enjoying this.
You guys have matching hats, and I do want to start this off as well. I had someone on my stream last night go, "Why the hell did you not tell me on the podcast that you guys published to YouTube?" So if you're listening on any of the other platforms, you can go to YouTube and actually see the video. So if you'd like to look at, or ugly faces while you watch or listen to the podcast, you can do that as well.
Everybody's pretty good looking other than me. I'm kind of
You're not bad looking. You're actually a pretty handsome dude. You're just fat.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, now that I'm growing my hair long, I realize I have to lose weight. Otherwise, people are going to call me Ron Jeremy.
Yeah.
Or just like the fat, creepy, long-haired dude.
Yeah, I don't want to be that,
Yeah. Homeless looking. That's okay though.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah.
I'm wearing our special edition shirt too. That's only available for another week or so. So you might want to go get it now.
Here's an interesting thing about you being morbidly obese. When you were in the military, when you guys were in the military, did they still have your senior NCOs could like slap chow out of people's hands and like be really nasty towards fatties?
Oh, we absolutely were like that all the time. Like if you were dumpy and down in one of our rooms, like you got made fun of a lot. Like they called my buddy Moobs for like 4 years.
Yeah, hazing was still cool when I was in. Unfortunately, hazing's not cool anymore. Which I think a little bit of hazing goes a long way. I feel like I've been hazed plenty of times.
I want to challenge you on this right here because I hate that word. What we faced is
it's not hazing.
It's not hazing.
It's not hazing.
You are being held accountable because you are required to hold a standard to do the job that we're there to do. And when you're being put in positions where you're doing physical activity, whether it's because of punishment or because you need a little extra motivation, that's not hazing.
I completely agree with that. Hazing to me would be like stripping a private down in front of the whole platoon naked and like spraying with ice cold water. That's hazing.
Or like the baseball team down in Miami that was like holding dudes down and jerking them off.
Yeah. Wow.
Which depending.
What about shoving a private in between two mattresses and throwing them off a 2-story building?
No. I mean, that's a rite of passage.
That's just drunk good fun times.
I don't know. I think there probably is a fine line between hazing and just general indoctrination in a way where you have to go through this. Everyone has to go through the entire cycle. But I completely remember when you had fat kids, and that's what they were called. So I'm not making it a derogatory term. It's like, hey, fat kid, hey, fatty, and they would take them out of one chow line, put them in another chow line, and they would only scoop onto their plates what they felt was healthy and appropriate based on the American food pyramid, which was typically rice. So you're just like filling up fat kids with like more and more carbohydrates. I don't know if that necessarily worked, but it was definitely, it wasn't even, you can't even say it was in vogue. It was the standard. And you were berated. If you were chunky, it was really a bad time for you.
I feel like that's fine though, right? Like you're not fat shaming someone just that wants to live that lifestyle. That's totally fine. That's their own individual right. But if you're signing up to be like an infantryman, like you got to bring your fucking A game and like be physically fit. I'm completely in line with that method of thinking.
Even as a senior E5, when I was an instructor, like I started slipping a little bit and I had like a pretty shitty O course time. They brought that up in a staff meeting for 8 months. Like every time we had the staff meeting, my O course time would be up there, and like, did I get it down or not? Like,
were you fat back then?
No. I just, I started drinking a lot.
Oh. Have you guys ever been hazed before? I think the only time that I could probably say, I mean, I've been fucked up a bunch, and I think because Ranger Battalion used to be pretty rough, and guys, I'm sure way rougher in the 90s before I got there, but. when I showed up to battalion, everybody was deployed other than a couple dudes that got back from Ranger school. And I'm still friends with some of the guys that did this, but they got hammered drunk and woke us up at like, and I've only been there for like 4 or 5 days before we deployed. So I was like, I'd do anything because, you know, you're terrified. They woke us up at like 3 a.m, hammered, and smoked us for like 5 hours until the morning for no reason. And then just like, we're like throwing beers at us and all this shit. And I was like, that's a little excessive. Like, and I didn't fuck up or anything, but at the same time, I'm new there. I kind of deserved to get slapped on the wrist a little bit.
I think there's a general misinterpretation between hazing and preparing people for
War.
this. Yeah. So at any point in time, you have to be prepared to put out, right? So it doesn't matter. There is no safe sanctuary unless you're on leave and you're home. And I think there are psychological benefits to essentially training men like that. But once again, there is a fine line between what you would probably be considered hazing. Because I'd heard stories about guys getting put in sleeping bags and hung out of windows and all kinds of crap.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Like, that's just dangerous. You might break somebody's neck doing that.
We might piss some people off with this, but let's go down that rabbit hole for a quick second. I think this whole sensitivity thing, a part of the military, is a massive transgression. Like, it's a volunteer army right now. And if you're signing up to go be an infantryman, you should get your shit kicked in. Like, we need to make the toughest military out there. It'd be like me pulling out a card that says I'm fucking triggered and
I'm stressed.
I'm stressed. Like, no, I signed up to be a ranger. Like, I better like be put to the utmost test possible to condition me to be in a fucking special operations unit. You know, and even on being an infantryman or being someone that's put on the front lines, like I feel
so
it's ridiculous.
We broke a guy's hand once on accident, but so he showed up a leg, and when you show up, you have to carry your cherry helmet. Well, because he didn't go to airborne school yet, we made him carry a bowling ball that was like the orb of woe, and he put it in his backpack and then got dropped for push-ups, and it came out of his bag and smashed his wrist.
Yeah, well, you didn't throw at him. That's part of the game. Whatever.
What about you guys? Because you came in what year?
I'm going to put a light on it.
07? No, everything that I went through, I would chalk up as just physical training. You know, there's the thing they do when you get Lance Corporal, you get pinned.
Yeah.
Where they
right.
put the insignia on, you get a little.
There.
Well, everybody does that, right? When I got my CIB, my combat infantry badge, you have all your teammates that already had one come by and hit you as hard as they can. And I mean, my chest was just bruised for like a week after that, and bloody and everything.
Yeah, and that's just becoming part of the tribe.
No, I thought that was awesome. I don't think that's hazing. I loved it. I was like, I earned my shit.
Yeah, and a lot of the physical therapy that we would have to endure. So it's like that's why you joined to be in the military, is to do stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just preparing you for the eventual craziness that you're going to go through in a couple months.
Was that a real thing though? Back in the day, I was hearing these rumors where you could put out, you had stress cards in basic training that you could pull out and say, I'm too stressed out, I can't take anymore. And
I heard rumors about that. I don't know if
is that a real thing or a rumor?
I don't know if anybody's ever proved it.
No. I think in some basic trainings, I heard that was an actual thing, but that's,
I remember hearing that too.
I don't know. You should Google that, Logan.
Yeah,
I'm on it.
Yeah, hot Logan's going to get on that Google. But I think you're right, because if you're training for the most politically incorrect thing in known necessarily to organized humanity, which is war, you really, I don't think there's any room for people to be triggered, right? You can't be triggered. That's not a thing. You can't be triggered like, oh, you offended me. Really? Well, that IED or that RPG fucking screaming at you at 3:00 in the morning, that might trigger you too, pal. So why don't you get over it?
Well, it just becomes this social stupidity kind of thing, because if you think about it, it's like, to be an MIT graduate, an engineer from MIT, you have to pass your finals at a certain level. So it's like,
right.
but then we're going to say that in order for you to do one of the most stressful jobs possible, to go to war, you're allowed to say, I need a timeout because I'm stressed out. Like, get the fuck out of here. You're not living up to the standard of what you need to be.
Literally every military selection course is based around those two fundamental things, mental and physical fatigue. And then you put them together and it makes this fuck show of hardship. And obviously there's different levels to that. But if it's a volunteer army, I think it should be
super hard.
Yeah, super hard. I agree. Like
and a little bit nasty.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it has to be hard and a little bit nasty. I think people have to get a little rough. They got to be a little bit mean. I mean, they got to try to expose your weaknesses. I think that's one of the things with the community is you have to have thick skin, right?
Yeah,
it's like if you don't have thick skin, man, you're not going to survive. Mm-hmm. People sense weakness, and we used to always say that, right?
Start pulling the
seek
sweater.
Weakness, and the entire group turns to identify and attack the weakness. That's exactly what I've seen over and over and over again. And 20 years, it was just find the weakness, and then typically what would happen is the person would just adapt to whatever they were being triggered by or whatever their perceived slight was. They would just adapt and move over it. They'd just be like, oh, fuck it. I don't even know why I was so triggered by that.
Yeah, but I never understood the kind of physical attributes, like how long it took the military to finally be okay with tattoos and facial hair and stuff like that. Because look at the psychological aspect of this. If the entire special operations community looked like a biker gang, and the president just has to go, hey, you want me to send these guys over, these big bearded, tatted dudes that are rough as fuck? Like, this is our force.
Well, yeah. Well, I think there's a level of craziness and exploration associated with people that want to be in those units, right? Like, even the infantry, you have to be a little nutty in the head to be like, give me a gun and I want to go run at bullets. Like, you're obviously going to be an adventurous person that takes calculated risks, and like, that's part of the psychology that makes these warriors so good. And I think it's so funny when the DoD and other people like try to criticize that. Like, oh man, those tattoos, you can't have it. It's like, what? You're sending this dude with a 240 Bravo to in Afghanistan to hike fucking 20 miles and get shot
to go kill people. You designated needed killing.
Yeah, man, like, let the dude have a forehead tat that says, death before dishonor. Let the fucking 19-year-old kid do that, man. Jeez Louise.
If that gives them the confidence, like, that makes them feel fucking good in that situation, fuck it. Who cares?
Well, psychologically, they're pretty much being a part of a tribe. I mean, that's right. It's a culture that's built in there. That's why a lot of the military guys have tattoos, because you go out and get them together after the night of drink and yada, yada. And it's like that. It builds that tribe mentality, which applies to you going overseas.
It's this arbitrary image of professionalism. I mean, I remember being scolded for having hiking boots in 2005. Oh, those aren't issued boots. It's like, yeah, but my unit issued them to me, and they're better than these giant fucking goof boots that you guys give us. Like, but it's not professional.
Go ahead. Tell your sock story, Logan. That's a good one.
Oh yeah,
my sock story.
Yeah, was it white socks or something?
Oh yeah. So this all stems from. I actually made it into a regiment PowerPoint because our regiment colonel swung by our patrol base one day unannounced.
Where was this patrol base? And explain the conditions there. Just explain it.
So we had been getting in gunfights just about every day for 2 or 3 months at this point, and we were pretty much isolated. We were on the western edge of the battlefront, and pretty much just started going savage. We cut off our pants. We were wearing flip-flops around to go to to go to the guard tower, stuff like that. Because we, at that point, realized the most important thing in our lives was just
survival.
Survival. Yeah. We didn't really care about shaving or cutting our hair or any of that stuff. We were just worried about staying alive and killing the enemy at that point. Well, the colonel shows up and he puts us all in formation, and he begins to tell us that the reason that we're losing our legs and the reason guys are dying is because we're not cutting our hair and we're not shaving our faces and we're wearing white socks. So
what's his colonel's name? I want to shame him.
No, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Thanks, though, Jared. But he specifically looked at the section of snipers I was with, and he made us get in a group and take a picture of us together. And, we didn't look very good in this picture, obviously, but this made it in a PowerPoint that was briefed back to Washington, and it's the group of us, and on the caption it says, Stay Team Zero. Porn star stashes, combat sneakers. What a prize. So one of the guys in our section, they actually removed him and they put him on guard duty at the main fob. This guy had been to Iraq 3 different times, had some of the most experience in our section, and they just took him away from us in the heat of, some of the most intense combat that we experienced.
Oh God. This falls right in line with his message of fucking fucked up officers that don't have a fucking clue what they need to be doing out there.
Yeah. So they, the regiment kind of has this big cycle that they go throughout Helmand Province, and comes back a few months later. Things are still pretty dicey, and so the story goes is that this colonel, he came back and he went on patrol, and this Afghan came up and just happened to be able to have the ability to pick up a rock and smash the colonel in the nose. And that Afghan didn't live very long, but so the colonel goes back to see the corpsman, and he's a little pissed off. And he's like, I want my medevac moved up to an urgent. And the corpsman's like, well, sir, if you want to get an urgent, I'm going to have to do a complete physical. You're going to have to completely strip down. So as the story goes, in the process of stripping down, the colonel was wearing whites.
That's fucking hilarious.
Oh, that's great.
Leading by example.
He's speechless.
No, it's one of my favorite stories. I think that everybody, because that story has the entire story arc, right? It's just
happy ending.
A big example to, leading by example, or however we want to really kind of frame that up.
Well, I think that's a large part, right? And there's amazing officers out there, so I'm not discrediting, but that's a large part of leadership, which is the issues. They don't get to know the guys, the struggles that they face because they're in a completely different perspective and bubble than them. And I've had that too, where I've had a sergeant major come in and be like, you guys have to blouse your boots until you're outside the wire. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? We're like a special operations unit. But it's like, you're focusing on the shit that doesn't matter rather than being like, okay, blouse your boots when you go to the chow hall or in front of the big army. Okay, got it. Like that's a happy medium. You can defend that. But I think it's just a complete wrong lens of action with no understanding of what actually impacts the guys in a positive way.
Yeah, and that element of discipline, like it doesn't have any direct effect with how you operate from a combat perspective, right? It has nothing to do with it. It was actually one of the main things in Generation Kill too, was that the sergeant major was a stickler on the mustache regulation. Yeah. So he comes back and later in that book, in that series, comes like, oh, that's why I was so hard on guys' mustaches, because we need to take their mind off of what's going on and embrace discipline. It's like, does that make sense?
No. I don't know. I've thought about that a lot, and I think my theory on that, which is just my theory, right, is I think uniform standards are easy. They're just easy to enforce. They're easy to just go high order. Yeah, you can identify it, you can fix it, so
it makes you feel like you're doing something.
Yeah. So I see a lot of, at least I've seen and witnessed a lot of senior NCOs and officers, they decide to choose that path because the complexities of leading men in combat are so psychologically difficult that if they focus on the things that they can read in a manual and that they can fix or enforce, they feel like they're doing something, and then they feel like they've directly contributed to the success of the force somehow, right? It's a psychological reinforcing issue.
That's exactly what I was saying, but not even close as articulated. It's like you don't know what to do, so the thing that you do is
I'll yell about this.
AR,
it's low.
AR 670-10, I believe.
That colonel nor that sergeant major, like, did they go around and did they talk to any of the enlisted guys from the privates that were there up to the corporals? Well, like, hey, what's going on, guys? Like, why are you guys perceived to be struggling upon the initial presence here, and like, how are you adapting? Like, there was no conversations like that. There was no back and forth as opposed to like how we were doing operationally and how we needed to change our TTPs in order to be efficient. There was nothing. That was just immediately hey, we're making an example of you and we're taking one of your best guys. And it's like, how does that make any sense from a leadership perspective?
Yeah, I got real lucky though. I had some great officers, like phenomenal. I had good PLs. I had an XO.
Well, you don't survive over there if you're not good, right?
True, right? Yeah, no. I had one PL get fired. He showed up, gave us an op order, and then the next day we're like, "Where's the PL at?" And then it was just the platoon sergeant being the ground force commander. It's kind of hushly, quietly went away. I had an XO that was like, I think he was an E6 or 7, enlisted in Ranger Battalion, and then came over as an officer. That dude was a fucking stud.
Damn.
I think those are always the best.
They are.
It depends, I guess. I've had great officers. One of my best friends, he's West Point grad officer. Multiple, I guess I should say, really, really good friends that were great officers, and not just because they were my friends. I've had people that I didn't personally like, but they were good officers. And, it's not me just saying that to kind of pacify everyone. It's just, people are cut from different cloth. And honestly, I don't think that you can change a person's DNA. I think if you're a good guy, you have sound ethics and you're intelligent, you're trying to do the hard right over the easy wrong. One of my favorite sayings that I just made up a few years ago was, standing next to the microwave for a couple of years isn't going to change your DNA. You're still a shitbag. And it doesn't matter what rank you put on your collar. If you're a shitbag, you're a shitbag. And if you're a good dude, you're a good dude. And that's where I think the special operations community, you really have a benefit when you make entry into the tribe. You get to be around a bunch of guys that feel very similar to you. You're mission oriented. You're committed to accomplishing very complex tasks, and a lot of the arbitrary bullshit just gets chopped out, and all that white noise just gets chopped out. That was one of the most driving factors to go into the community was I wanted to be around guys that were just as committed as I was, and I didn't want to be around the guys that were just looky-loo vacationers that were trying to pay for college or whatever the fuck they were trying to do. Like, hey man, I want to be a professional soldier. So where do you go?
It's so true with that, and I think one of the weirdest things for me is because I was such a child, and then going into Ranger Battalion, and then after you're pretty much gauging your own self against all these like iconic epic dudes that are like jacked, smart, intelligent warfighters, like, and gals too. And then you remove yourself from that community and you're like, oh, these are what normal people like. I thought that was normal. And you're kind of in retrospect so blown away by the amount of just like, I wouldn't say excellence, but just amazing humans that are a part of that. And I mean, they exist in other places in the world, but I think that's a part. It applies to every aspect of your life, whether that's business, your friends. It's like we always say, psychology is more contagious than the flu, and it's like who you hang around with definitely influences how you're going to act, whether it's your job or just friends. And it's really interesting to see that the older I get, like how much the fucking people around you matter.
Yeah,
not fucking the people around you.
Right. Well, yeah,
I know that could be misinterpreted with my previous lifestyle.
I was Freudian slip there.
I was reading a book actually on child development, and they were talking about how a child's friends, so their peer group, at a certain point become more influential in their lives than their parents. So. Yeah. It's so interesting to me because you think back to that time, especially with kids, I'm always thinking back to what were my parents doing or what was I doing? Think back, and I was so fortunate to have a couple really good friends that were good dudes, right? I'm still friends with them today. I was talking to one of my best friends. We met on the first day of first grade. We're on a text string with 3 other people that we've known for, I was 6 years old then. So, almost 40 years of friendship, and these guys are still solid, contributing to their community. They're just fucking good guys. I think I was really just fortunate to land within a good peer group where we all kind of kept each other relatively straight, right? Like standard teenage antics. Like I think you can just chalk that up to bullshit, but I didn't realize that my friends were so influential during that time. I had no idea. But now that I think back, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess they probably were.
Yeah, but look at it now. All of us have an influence on how we behave, like 100%, whether you want to agree with it or not right now. Like the things we do. I mean, like I probably would have gotten to bow hunting if it wasn't for you. I mean, so there's like, it still happens to stay. You're kind of a product of, you know, the top 5 friends you hang out with, for sure.
Yeah.
Other than like I haven't adopted Jared's eating habits nor lifestyle.
Well, I mean, you know, we're not picking up other people's bad habits.
True.
Yeah. It's just, you guys haven't quelled me into doing the Zeus.
That's true. You're not Zins
or Zins, whatever they are. Like,
yeah.
I've never been pushed into nicotine.
Well, we're not like pushy friends. Like, we don't try.
Man.
I was sleepy one meeting, and I was like, Evan, can I just try one of those stupid gums you chew? And fuck me, man. Damn it. I haven't had one today, though. Haven't had one today.
Good job.
Nope,
we're
good.
It's about.
I got the Tom Hanks in my right hand right now.
I got back on the gum. I think I don't know. I just got back on the gum. I could for like 6 months, and then I just got back on the gum. It's like, I tried back on it.
Quit drinking yesterday from 10 a.m. to about 2, and then 2. Myself offered myself a White Claw, and I had to take it. You know?
That piece of shit, you know? I just keep getting influenced by myself.
So, like, as we start to unwrap this thing, like all these other things that are going on, what's everyone's take on Mattis? What's coming out as far as, what was his exact quote, that Trump is dividing the country and ultimately doing something contradictory to the Constitution or something like that? I think that was the one that was most highlighted. What do you guys think about that?
I got to do research, dude. I've been living on a rock. I haven't read one news story in like 4 days. So you're going to have to, have to let me in on that.
I saw was that letter from John Dowd today, that kind of just highlighted a lot of things. I mean, I don't know these people at that level. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Mattis had a 2+ year relationship with the president, working directly underneath him, like working with him every day. Like, so it's like, you can't discredit somebody when he says something, like when he has more of a relationship than I do and has more of a clearance than I do. So it's like, I just don't know. It's like, you don't know what to believe these days, and you don't know where some of this stuff is coming from, because if you were to take his initial statements and just read those in a vacuum and not look at that letter that John Dowd wrote today, like John Dowd had a lot of really good points that were kind of like, hey, what about this?
So can you remember any of those points? Summarize, just Cliff Note Jared style for us. Like nobody's gonna hold us to this.
No, it's just he was saying, where were you during these situations? Where was your leadership during this? You were relieved under central command from Obama for X, Y, and Z. He's like, so if you're going to essentially sit here on your high horse and throw stones at this, like you were in situations that are somewhat, similar, I guess, like where you're in a situation where you're in charge and you have to make a decision and you don't know if that decision is correct. John Dowd was also pointing out that Obama did use the military to dispel civic unrest. Did you read the letter?
No, you sent me the link right before the podcast, and
okay.
I was busy.
All right.
But I'll have to. So we'll have to publish the link to that to see if, or just Google it. We don't have to publish it.
But I'm now wondering though, like, does Mattis answer that? Like, because if it goes unanswered, there were a lot of things in there that Mr. Dowd was like nailing him with, and this comes from a very well-respected Marine officer.
Right.
So
I've just been trying to check out the news because everything's so crazy right now. I just need a quick hiatus from everything,
God,
the riots, the looting.
How can you?
Police departments getting disbanded and shit. I'm like, dude, I need a water break. Give me a siesta from fucking the news.
Now you can't even opt out because people want to attack you if you're not saying anything.
But even social media, man, everywhere I look, it's just people arguing, and it's just hot air, and there's no action behind it. I'm like, oh.
Someone though that I always argue with on Facebook, like once a morning. He's actually a friend of all of ours. I'll tell you who he is later. But he is very left leaning. He lives in Silicon Valley. He is very on that side of things. And I go after him hard on a regular basis. But this morning I commented on something as his, and I said, hey, it's time that we start firing these people that were put in charge, that raised millions of dollars in campaign money, that took these positions. It's time to start saying you're not doing your job and you're done. You're gone. Like, we're going to replace you now. And he actually agreed with me this morning. So I was like, all right, we're getting somewhere.
Look at that.
Well, I guess that's the thing with, as we touch on this whole defunding police departments, I guess I'm really confused. I'm confused over the whole thing. And I think, I haven't necessarily checked out, but it's really hard for me to figure out how this entire thing is going to work. Instead of holding politicians accountable, your representatives that were elected to write legislation and laws, you're going after the police that enforce the law. And I understand completely that, there are men and women out there that have access to grind, and, by no means are we condoning, or I'm condoning murder or racism or any of those things. I'm just saying that the vast majority of police have incredibly difficult positions. They're on the front lines in our communities every day doing amazing things. And it's statistically impossible to hire hundreds of thousands of law enforcement throughout the United States and get it right every time. It's statistically impossible, actually. And I just don't quite understand, though, there's so much direct hatred towards the police and not enough towards the elected officials that we essentially voted and hired to write and enforce. And then we woke up a week ago and said, hey, this is wrong. But then we've been voting and electing people every 2 to 4 years for as long as I think the country's been around, at least as long as my lifetime. So where is the accountability from our elected officials, and where are they stepping in, and where have they stepped in?
No, they're pointing the finger below them. Like, that's what this is they're pointing the finger down.
I think there's a lot. I think nobody's stepping in front and saying, this is my fault. We haven't done enough in our community to write, impactful legislation that directly represents what the community wants. No politician is doing that because they're weak. They're pathetic, most of them. And I think that's where
the only thing they care about usually is their
it's
job.
Getting reelected.
Yeah. That's and then by any means necessary. No, it's hard because especially if you're giving so much blanket hate to the law enforcement guys. I would imagine if I was a good cop who really cared about my community, and then I'm getting spit on and called a racist every day, I might look for other employment, and you're gonna lose some really good guys and gals. I think consistently just blanket throwing hate, it's the wrong answer. I think your comments are great, going back to elected politicians and how do we have reform that changes the culture. If the culture is fucked up in a local law enforcement agency, like let's fix it. But to fucking do
why aren't we looking at the leadership is exactly the question.
Top down.
It's like, yeah, exactly. Like, it's time to say, you guys were put in the position to be in charge.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time. If we look back, even we'll take a look at the last 20 years of politicians at the federal level. If you don't agree with the Iraq War and you think that we invaded it based on non-principles or a lack of principles, you had the opportunity to elect a new leader and a new administration. Right? The Bush administration got 8 years. They got 2 terms. A lot of people say, well, it was the first election with Gore shouldn't have been counted because of the voting or whatever. It's too close to count ultimately. But you gave somebody 2 terms, and there was a massive redistribution of wealth in the Middle East from the taxpayer to the military industrial complex because we were fighting 2 wars, right? In Afghanistan and Iraq. And I would say with no clear objectives. And you had an entire administration that didn't have any military background. So, kudos to you guys. Dick Cheney had 0 military training. He had 0 military background. So why again am I listening to a group of people that have never been to war? And the one guy that had been to war, which is Colin Powell, left. And so, you're planning in a vacuum. And I don't care if anybody disagrees with me at the end of the day. I fought in Iraq for almost 5 years. I've earned the right to say whatever the fuck I want to say about that country because I put in more miles late at night than 99% of the people that stepped into that fucking place. So it was a shit show. And the reason it was a shit show was there was a lack of leadership from the fucking top.
There's like a vision and objective.
And nobody could decide what victory really meant. And then you go to Afghanistan, you replicate that for 20 years. You redistribute trillions of dollars in taxpayers. Meanwhile, the Chinese and the Russians are just basically saying, fuck yeah, we're going to play this on a more strategic level and implement 100-year plan, 100-year visions while you guys are fucking around in the Middle East and Central Asia. Not that you're just fucking around, but we have real enemies out there that mean to do us harm. And we've had a failure of administration and elected officials for decades because they've been more concerned about being reelected and redistributing wealth to their donors than taking care of the people. I see this as a direct failure in leadership from the top, and I don't blame the law enforcement community because I think the vast majority of them go to work every day and they love their communities, their family men, their wives, their husbands, their people that serve their community honorably every day. But I think this is if there's something wrong, it's the people that we've been electing year after year after year. I mean, Obama was no better, 2 terms, right? He's the only president to kill American citizens overseas with, predator strikes in Yemen. He killed American citizens. He didn't burn down Gitmo. He didn't pull us out of Afghanistan. It's a joke. It's a joke, man. And for me, when I look at it, it's like, we have had a failure from the very top of these administrations and no change has been implemented. But this is my 2 cents. I think that I've earned it in the sense of I've earned my 2 cents.
That's about 8 cents. I think you gave us 8 cents.
Yeah. You can agree or disagree. I'm sure there's plenty of people that disagree. Like there are bad men that mean to do us harm, and we should be pursuing them internationally every day and eliminating them from the fucking planet. Like there's just zero doubt in my mind. Now, large scale military occupations in countries. Now that is that we have learned, at least hopefully we've learned that that's not a winning tactic, man. We fucked that up. Anyway.
Yeah, it's not a very simple thing, right? And I think a lot of us look at it in that lens as far as how much money we spent on campaigns not necessarily worth it. And I'm talking about a specific theater. I'm just saying in general across the years, and that money could have been allocated towards inner city education. It could have been allocated towards streets and things that actually impact the American citizen in a super more beneficial way. But then again, we elect those people that do that. So, Yeah,
another redistribution of wealth during the Obama administration to the banking industry. So the banks fuck up our entire economy, and then the taxpayer is left holding the bag. We have to pay for it. We have to write the checks. Yeah, nobody loses their job. Nobody loses their job. Nobody goes to jail. Nobody loses their job. Like it's okay. Well, yeah, I get the frustrations.
Don't worry about that little guy.
But it's like
I get people are frustrated. I am too. I'm frustrated and pissed off. Right? You can't eliminate law enforcement and take away our right to bear arms. That's just fucking stupid. You can't say defund law enforcement in Los Angeles County and say, oh, hey, by the way, we're also going to try to take your guns. That's
Why
crazy,
do you need
man.
guns if you have the police?
Huh?
Why do you need guns if you have the police?
Yeah.
We don't want the police anymore.
That's one of my favorite arguments is when someone's like, anti-police, but then also give the police will protect you. It's a bizarre form of thinking that I've never been able to rationalize with.
Like the Los Angeles County mayor said that he's defunding. I don't know. I think I'm just trying to get the appropriate amount of information. Yeah. Defunding to the tune of like $150 million in Los Angeles. And at the same time, California is one of the most gun restrictive states in the union. And then you have Hollywood
Criminals.
out there, Hollywood going, yeah, we need to defund the police. Well, that's great when you're worth a couple $100 million. You can afford a private militia. What about everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the funny thing? It's like the anti-gun lobbyists down in that section of the world or country, and then they turn right around, and we've talked about this plenty of times before, but like turn around and hire a private security detachment of, former SOP guys that have, pistols on them, and you're like, bit of a hypocrite, no? Just a bit of a hypocrite there. You like the safety and the sanctuary of having an armed citizen next to you, yet you're trying to pull that right away from the people that don't have the money to hire someone to protect them. It's up to their own selves. So it's, I don't know. I feel like this world is so hard to rationalize with right now.
It absolutely is. There is no logic to a lot of the things that are being said or thrown around or nothing like that. I mean, it's just like, the Austin headquarters for police was just completely ransacked, and like they went up and graffitied the whole thing and stuff like that. Well, it was like, no one in Austin PD committed this. Like, why wouldn't you? This was in Minneapolis. Why wouldn't you at least go, hey, at least in my community, I think we're doing a little better than over there. Yeah. Like, why are you going and fucking up your own shit in your own neighborhood?
Which one way or another is coming out of their pocket.
Yes, exactly.
And that's like the thing with me. It's, my dad always bitched about taxes when I was younger. I never got it. But like, how much you pay these days in taxes, it's not like, I think people just get conditioned like, oh, it just comes out of my paycheck every day. It's like 35 to 45% of your overall fucking income goes into the government. And then you have these elected politicians who are fucking moronic, spending it in every way possible other than benefiting yourself. And then now it's like you got these fucking looters and vandalizers that are fucking up all this stuff. Who is going to pay for it? The government. Who pays the government? Who works for us? You. Us. They work for us.
Yeah.
And it's like, it hurts my fucking brain to even think about it, especially, how much fucking taxes you pay when you own a business and the trickle down effect of every transaction paying. It's just, they hit you like fucking 9 times, man. It's like, it's real money. It's real money.
Yeah, if the police get defunded, I doubt they're going to
give us a kickback, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Even the police and give everybody a Glock stipend.
But there did you guys see that video clip? I think it was in Los Angeles. There's a woman holding a sign that says, do away with police. And a bunch of people around them start messing up this guy's store, and he comes out with a chainsaw.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yelling, call 911. Like,
got him. Yes. Can you imagine? And I'm gonna get a little like gross here, but when you sit down and have a conversation with these people, like, I just want to look at a woman, and I would never ever do this. I'm the antithesis of what I'm about to say, but like, I can get in your house at night, and I could fucking murder you, do whatever I want to you. Who's gonna stop me? Like, I want to put people in that fucking bubble. Put the cat in the bathtub. How are you gonna react?
Your child goes missing.
Yeah, sort those fucking ideas in your head. Exactly. Your child goes missing in a fucking Costco. Who do you call?
Yeah.
Who you call?
What are you going to do?
You got to get all the community organized together.
Dude,
motherfucker, like, are you like, and this is not like defending every police officer out there. It's just like the idea and notion that you're going to defund a police department. Like, maybe you should be trying to reform and go through some form of further education or training procedure to whatever, right? There's like 900 ways you can look at this, and I don't know which one's right, but it's lunacy. It's absolutely fucking lunacy.
Well, it's not a solution. Is what it is.
No, it's an emotional, temporary,
not a solution.
Fix. It's a knee-jerk reaction.
Nothing they're promoting is an actual solution.
And it's an experiment at the end of the day. Like, Minneapolis is going to be an experiment. They voted to defund their police department. Who knows what that looks like? And the way that I think this looks like is, what happens, right? What happens if all the police go home?
Well,
what happens?
This morning, didn't over 40 take early retirement and 14 resigned? Like, so they're already starting the beginning of the landslide. But
what happens?
But what are the vast majority? Yeah, that's what I'm asking. What do you guys think happens in this time?
Well, the scary,
all the cops are gone.
Yeah.
They leave. So, I was just thinking about this today, and actually my wife and I have been going to the range on a more a more standard cadence, by the way, just so we all know. And she's killing it, man. She has a 10-inch group at 25 with the Glock 43. She is nailing it. And the STIs, oh my gosh, smoking it.
That's awesome.
We were talking about it, and here's my wife. And my wife is not political. She's, if anything, she's center right. She's pretty centrist. She's like, this is scary to think. We lived right across the street in Salt Lake City from one of the largest parks, Liberty Park, for several years. And there were tent cities and people doing drugs and people dealing drugs. And, there were rapes in the park. There was a lot of violent crime and drugs in the park. And we have 2 little kids. And there are 4 different swing set places within Liberty Park and around there, to the point of which they were getting rid of the tent cities. And when I say getting rid, like they were making the homeless people move to different areas of town because parents couldn't bring their kids to the park because you're afraid of stepping on a hypodermic needle, or you're, afraid of being robbed, or you're afraid of being accosted in some way. And, we would see it every day downtown, not every day, but every week there was like a naked man walking down the street in front of our house, like with a tennis racket one day, just like hitting the fence. We found hypodermic needles in our backyard. And I'm like, do you think this is all just going to go away? People just think this is all just going to go away magically because it's the police's fault that there are hypodermic needles and drug dealers.
It's a human problem.
Once we get rid of the police, all the problems will go away. Is that their logic? Is that what they're thinking?
That makes sense. It does. Maybe that's what it needs. Like a week with no law enforcement. Everybody's like, okay, we fucked up.
Here's the problem with that, though, is are all 9 of those city council members going to be fired? If Minneapolis just fucking goes to shit, turns into a third world country overnight, are we holding those city council members accountable for their decision that they made? They should face the consequences and be charged with all the shit that happens following it.
I mean,
because they made the decision, did they not?
The future's going to tell us. I have no idea what that's going to shake out like. I got to do some more research tonight because this is crazy.
But the entire platform is, don't get me wrong, there is plenty of things that I don't agree with on the conservative side too. So this is going to be a bit hazy. But so what does it look like? Open borders, no law enforcement, and no guns, because that, from my perspective, that's a big part of their agenda, right? Open borders, no law enforcement, and no guns. What does that world look like? What does America look like at that point?
Have you ever seen the movie Escape from New York?
Yeah, of course.
I have a firm belief that Texas will just become its own country and it'll be the greatest country in the world, and I live in it. So God bless you, Texas. Let's keep it safe.
I mean, it looks like a place like Iraq. Like the police is busy. The police in Iraq are not near as many as we have over here, and they're busy doing other shit rather than policing people on a regular basis. So it's like, yeah, you go into where neighborhoods are ran by tribal leaders, gangs become the new, they rise up.
Power.
Yeah, they become the new power.
And then you get an expansion of territory based off of that amount of power you have until you get to this point where it's, a leader who really doesn't care about the community. They're just wanting to expand what they're in control of.
And then when you have lots of power, you're not held to a moral or ethical standard.
No, you're corrupt.
At least right now, politicians that act hyper unmorally can't just go out and murder people. But when you're in a gang, I mean, if you speak bad about the gang, you probably don't show up to your meeting in the morning, if you know what I'm saying, because they sneak in your house, turn off the lights, and blow your fucking head off. I mean, look at the cartels, right? I mean, that's terrifying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's terrifying to think, and I think that's probably the misplaced logic in some of this, which is, I think people live such isolated and protected lives. Yeah, so where I was paused, which I'm not exactly sure because I just get kind of wound up and I keep fucking talking. No, I going back to my previous point, which I don't know the clear objective to these things. I wholeheartedly and completely agree with people's right to protest because it's freedom of speech. They're entitled to the right to protest. They're entitled to free speech. Like I'm principled in that. Like violence towards other Americans, like American violence on top of or towards other Americans, like it's very discouraging and disheartening. It's sad to see the country that you love just going at each other. Like, and it's, to your point, just tuning out of social media and trying to disconnect a little bit. But it's difficult because how many law enforcement officers do we know? And they're amazing people. They're incredibly generous. They're family people. They're community people. They go out and serve their communities every day. And you have a shitbag cop, like from a city in Minneapolis, that did a fucking horrible thing. But I know that's not, my buddy Ed in Idaho. I know that's not my buddy Mike in Seattle. I know that's not the majority of the cops that we know from around the United States that we're really good friends with. They're not racist. They love their communities. They go to work every day because they love their cities. They love their families. They love the people that they serve. To even include, Dan was a cop in Baltimore, and our chief of staff, he's a cop in Baltimore. We've got a ton of police officers here. It's that's not them. That's not them. They're fucking great people. So it's really sad, man. It's sad to see, I think, a bunch of great people being lumped in this conversation. And it's sad that people are going after innocent people, businesses that had nothing to do with this, breaking windows and burning to the ground and going after each other in the community in such an unproductive and violent way. It's really disheartening. It really is. I don't know what to say.
The emotion runs out here soon. We can actually get to rebuilding some of these communities and get back to things that are actually going to change it for the better in the future, rather than feel like we're just kind of,
that's what I mean. That's what
the parents are screaming.
The people that are trying to defend this too, they're like, no, this will show them that things have to change. Who are you showing? Because you didn't fire any of your fucking politicians. You just fucked your whole city up. So it's like, who did you show? Yeah. Now you have to drive an extra 20 minutes to get groceries because you burned your Target down. Who did you fucking show?
Do you get groceries at Target?
Yeah, just super Targets.
Yeah,
they have a good section there. I figured you're more of a Walmart guy.
I mean, whatever's closer.
But it still is an interesting conversation where it's hard for me to imagine how this entire thing starts to fold out. And I think from a strategic level, I think the Chinese and the Russians are, and this is where I get a little bit conspiratorial, but I think, this is a principle of warfare that goes back thousands of years, which is divide and conquer. And a country that is divided is much easier to manipulate. It's much easier to get your desired result. And if we just pay attention to more strategic level politics and what's happening in the international community, and we think, so do you think that we might be a little bit manipulated to come after each other in a way that's very detrimental to the country? Where you hit America where it hurts is our strengths. Our strengths are the economy, freedom of speech, right to bear arms. So you start, but you start punching that in the gut.
Well, you can't fuck with us militarily right now, right? So you have to kind of go from the.
You have to have a different tactic.
Yeah, you got to plant a cancer in there and let it grow and hopefully take everything out.
Yeah, there's a great video. I've referenced it before on the KGB's. It's a KGB officer you can find on YouTube, and he's talking about information operations, propaganda, and the direct propaganda IO campaign that the Soviets started back in the 30s and 40s in the United States. And when you start looking at those things, I don't think our communities are as divided as the media and social media would let you believe. And it's not that I'm living in a bubble. Like we don't live in a bubble, so to speak, right? We have a lot of service.
We've talked about this before too. That's part of like, I think the social media stuff. We want the most dramatic fucking story right now, right here. And which title is going to get more? Like white cop helps, African American community. They all band together and have a fucking barbecue, or racist cop, so which you're going to click on that one, right? And like that's the unfortunate thing is like, all these platforms that are monetized off of impressions and higher SEO and all these other marketing strategies, they're completely applicable not only to like corporate entities, but moreover news, because the more views news gets, their advertisers pay them more. And like, I think people have to realize like, it's like neo-capitalism. We're all run off of making money. And I love a capitalistic society, but you have to be intelligent enough to navigate through it, because they're giving you what you want to see. There's reason that we all know what the word algorithm works, because look at your suggested feed on your Instagram. They're giving you exactly what you want. They're even placing ads with fucking photos that you like and then rolling into a product set right after they sell it to you. It's like, you have to at least have that cognitive like ability to understand that we're just getting marketed to for all these platforms. That's what they're doing. And if they create hyperbole and they create all this trash that just makes you want to click on it, you're going to click on it. Guess what? You just got them paid.
Well, I don't think that people could even comprehend that. I posted this in one of our Coffee or Die articles. It was like, there's a 2019 report that showed that there was a Russian independent group called the IRA, Internet Research Agency, but that they were creating posts around the 2016 election time, specifically targeted towards the black community, to try and pour gas on the fire for division between Americans, essentially. So you bet your ass that that's going on right now.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like, even at this point, like, because the media has gone so dumb lately, it's like we could blow this open and tell everybody in the country that this is what happened, and a good majority wouldn't buy it. They'd be like, no.
But it's in, I was telling Logan this earlier. I'm listening to the Mueller report's 20 hours long. I'm halfway through it. And it talks a lot about the Russian influence in the election. You had hundreds of people that were posting hundreds of thousands of posts, and they were seeing tens of millions. And Facebook estimates, they couldn't estimate how many times Instagram had been seen on their posts, but in Facebook specifically, they had at least 10% of the country was seeing directly manufactured Russian propaganda on a regular cycle leading into the election. And they were doing it for both sides, by the way. They were sowing discontent. It goes back to the whole thing, divide, right? If we think that the Russians are our friends, if we think that, we're just like, singing kumbaya in the international community, I'm telling you right now, like, as a guy that has like worked against Russian intelligence, has worked against, when I say worked against at a direct capacity, indirect capacity, they are not our friends.
Let's break that down on a more cellular level. Like a microcosmic example of that would just be like when you meet some trash fucking acquaintance and they say that one of your friends called you a piece of shit and was flirting with your girl at a party, right? Just making an example here. And then you're like, fuck that dude, fuck him. And then one day, 2 years later, after this whole thing went down and you guys didn't talk to each other and hate each other, you're like, I can't believe. He's like, what? I wasn't even at that party, dude. Why didn't you call me? Well, Brad said, and all you had to do was sit down with this supposed left and right that are so polarizing different and be like, oh, we're actually kind of not that different. Maybe we should focus on the shit that matters to us, And I think that's a decent example of what goes on, and people are just feeding us trash to be more sensitive and more defensive and have less educated conversation and more emotional conversation, because that's how they win.
Yeah, it seems like, taking the conversation at the beginning of the episode and like it seems like there's an overall leadership issue within the company, where it's like, why are we not in this time of crisis? Why are we not like putting together these public forums where we can have these conversations and work out the middleman which is the media. Like there's a couple different things that we could do here to try and bridge the gap, but it doesn't seem like any of that. It's just outrage, and it's just anger, and it doesn't feel like we're trying to connect at all.
Completely agree. And it's like, it's weird. Like you have liberals and Democrats pissed off, and I don't really talk about politics too much, but like the best dude you're going to give us is Biden. Dude can't even put a sentence together. Like how, like, can we get,
that's the best you could come up with?
Can we get some fucking people on both sides that believe in America? Like, come on, like
politics for 44 years.
Yeah.
And he's been in politics since, or before I was born.
Yeah.
Before I was born.
It's crazy.
Like, yeah.
How do you even, like, I try not to be just like a guy that says, I don't want to deal with it, so I'm going to tune out of it because I care so much. But at the end of the day, it's like, how do you make a difference on that level? Right? Like, I don't know. The way I that's a question. All I can say is I know where I want to impact my community, and that's why I'm so involved in the veteran community, because we can sway civilians to have a better understanding of who we are and, help in transition and reassimilation and dealing through mental and physical issues that we sent people to war that came back with them. Like, I know I can impact that. It starts small and we can make it big, but how do you impact change on the grand level? Like, I'm too stupid.
I'm too stupid for that one too. I don't have enough capacity for that. I think, for us, just as a company, I think, we have our mission, right? We have a very focused mission, and who we're directly trying to create positive impact in the veteran community. And when it says veteran, it's all inclusive, right? It's the entire veteran community, which encompasses every race and gender. And, I think that's one of the benefits that we have from being in service is, it forces you outside of your comfort zone. It forces you to serve with people that live in different cities from all across America. And it forces you to open up your mind to different ideas and different communities. That's just one of the many benefits. Like Logan was saying, he thinks that there should be some type of service requirement for Americans because it does create
ownership.
Like Jay was saying earlier, he's like, dude, I've never been racist a day in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. And I think there's something to be said for, people that serve, they serve the mission, they serve the Constitution, they serve the country, and the country is, 330 plus million people from everyone. You don't decide, I'm just going to serve one section of the country. No, it's the country. It's a very diverse country, and it's a beautiful, grand experiment. And having a democratic republic a lot of people just tearing it down, that I truly have so much love and admiration for the country itself. It's really, it can be depressing, man. It can be really depressing to look at it. Because you're like, we're fucking way better than this. We're way better than this. Yeah. And I know we're better than this. It's what I see, when you flip through the news and you see it in social, it's like, man, that doesn't represent my company. That doesn't represent me. That doesn't represent my family. But we're better than this as a country, for sure. Like we're fucking way better than this. I don't know how many times I have to say that, but
well, I don't think people have a willingness to look at America's glass as being half full at all right now. Like we're only focusing on the negative, but like us, we were just in Guatemala. Like you do a quick comparison, and like it's fucking wonderful here.
Yeah.
And yes, we're going through our issues, but is it not the best that it's ever been in America? Like,
yeah.
Information share is the highest, connectivity is the highest it's ever been, and what we're using the information share right now is to fucking bitch at each other.
Yeah, we're using these platforms, and
that's a great point. Sorry, Chair's a little fucking squeaky. We're gonna replace this one after this, but
it's we're at the highest point of our ability to share data and information, rather than using that to our advantage and tracking the fucking focus point of where the problems are and sharing it amongst
teleport someone in from like, the 1800s. And you're like, check this out. We have the internet. We can talk to anybody. And they're like, oh my God, what are we doing? Are we curing?
No, we're calling each other idiots.
No, we're calling each other idiots and setting our own communities on fire. Wait, what? Why?
Wait, why?
We're trying to figure that out right now.
We don't quite understand.
And it's not a laughing matter, but like you have to find some comedic relief in trial times. But man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a great example of that is we were driving around Guatemala in a armored car. The guy that we were, like, our coffee broker was like, hey, you guys can take my car. We get in it and we're like, wait, these doors are really heavy. And it's like, oh yeah, you need it around here. Oh yeah, you need it around here. Like, when was the last time you even thought about having an armored car in the worst
I have to remember to lock my truck sometimes. And probably lock that thing.
Yeah, like we have to remember I have to remember to lock the front door. Half the time it doesn't even get locked.
It sets the truth too. And I think that's a lot of this is not a lot of people. And it's a very positive thing in American society, haven't like faced those types of issues where them going to the grocery store requires a lot of logistics because they could get kidnapped, they could be shot, they could be robbed. And I know there are portions of that in the country, but not even close to what we deal with in the international community. And so no one knows what that feels like. And I think that's like kind of going back to like, having a police department disbanded. Like, you guys really want that? Like, to have that nice little buffer, that safety measure, the
resource.
Yeah, because you know who's just over here like doing one of these numbers, like getting excited? Criminals, right? They're like so excited. They're like, oh my God, there's going to be so much opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I heard the narrative. I heard the narrative, which was we just needed more. That they were talking about was we needed more economic reinforcement and opportunities in a lot of these communities. And I said, yeah, I would agree with that statement. There does need to be more economic opportunities. I think the socioeconomic injustices, obviously there's a system in place and there are wrongs that need to be righted. I don't disagree with any of those things. I disagree with the other articulation and the other points that if you're just going to invest in different communities and you think that the problems are just going to disappear, that's completely inaccurate. There are people, and believe it or not, and I don't think any of our listeners would actually disagree with this, but there are people in the United States that, regardless of how much opportunity or wealth they have, they're just fucking bad people. And if you don't agree with that, you can head on down to Wall Street and fucking take a look and see all the people that have all the economic opportunity in the world. Yeah, go to DC.
I was disgusted at the fucking attitude there.
There are people that are just exploitive in nature, regardless. Yeah. It doesn't just come from one specific portion of the community. It's just there are bad people. And so when you look at it and you read stories about New York, like back in the early 80s, like New York City and how crime ridden it was and how dangerous it was, man, New York is a pretty cool place at this point. Like, it's not bad, not compared to what it was.
Yeah. And it only gets worse. Power is like the most important currency of evil people. And, if you give them power, they have so much more of an ability to impact so much more people negatively. It's fucked. It's fucked.
Yeah, it is.
I got nothing else for this. It's just fucked.
So down.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't have brought the whole group down on this.
It's good. We had a good weekend. We'll end this on a positive note.
Yeah.
Because I want to know what you guys have been doing up at Salt Lake City. We had our buddy Fish in town, who's Granger Smith's lead guitar player, amazing human. Wrote two banger songs that we got the music back today because we tracked and wrote all the lyrics together. And we're gonna lay some lyrics down today and tomorrow. And I think you guys are gonna be real excited for the direction that these two go.
Yes.
Okay. What do you guys been up to?
We are going to the wilderness this week.
Yeah, we've got a series of coffee videos that we're gonna knock down. And that's Thursday. Is that when we're taking off?
Thursday, Friday. Yeah.
Thursday, Friday. So we're prepping to go up there and do that. Knock down some standard stuff. My wife isn't that interesting. It's like a lot of meetings. I did a whole finance thing last week, so I'm starting a new project on, with the finance guys, and like it's actually kind of boring, but it's super fun for me. So I'm doing that. We launched our sticker club, which I was super pumped about.
The
Sticker club.
Club.
Sticker club was great. Oh yeah, we'll just throw that up there. Ooh, look at those.
Man, I love that NASA BRC sticker. I can't wait for that.
I know. That shirt is going to be
So
amazing.
sexy. Probably just going to get 100 of those and wear them every day.
Well, we have a wide variety of those too. So we're coming out with some fantastic sticker and apparel options. Everybody's going to be stoked because they're really cool. And we've been working on a bunch of free range American designs.
Yep.
So we're going to launch some free range American designs.
I did see that question under some of the comments. When is there going to be a free range American shirt and that stuff? So we are building that merchandising so you guys can rock it if you would like. So we appreciate it. They're going to be classy. I'm going to be wearing them a lot.
Yeah, I can't wait for them. Like I'm super excited.
We've kicked off our personal products initiative, which the vault is coming soon.
Yeah, we got
we're all going to have all of our favorite little things, Nicknoids, that we like ourselves.
What else you guys been up to down there in Texas?
all the things, Logan.
Flying every day.
I'll fill you in on Thursday on our owner's brief where we sit and chat about life.
Life. Okay. Well, it's been good, fellas.
Thank you.
You know, it's been an interesting conversation.
Get mad, Logan. There's nothing other exciting. Like, what am I supposed to say? It's like I was at meetings. I was working on some biz dev stuff. You know, that's not exciting.
No, it's not.
Music's exciting for me.
Put my kids in a video with Brandon.
I started learning the piano. I'm like 3 hours into it. Yes, I'm like 3 hours into it. So that's
I
pretty
started
cool.
learning the xylophone about 3 minutes into it.
It's an expensive instrument to buy.
Well, I didn't get a piano. I got a
No, I'm talking about the xylophone.
Wait, should I start learning piano and see if you can get better quicker?
Oh, that would be funny.
You already have a music background.
That seems like a cop-out from a very competitive person.
I'm learning music. I'm learning music at the same
For the
time.
first time.
For the first time. So I think that there's a distinct competitive advantage.
Okay.
But maybe I get a 3-month head start. I don't know.
All right, we'll sort it. Well, cool beans. Always good to talk with you guys. I'm sure we'll be on the phone call later tonight or tomorrow morning. But yeah, hell yeah.
See you guys.
Later.
See you guys.